Welcome to DCS Pathways. I'm Kevin Patton, Pathways Counselor for Dublin City Schools. Choosing courses and planning for life after high school can feel overwhelming. The ideas and resources shared here are intended to help students and families with this important process. This episode features a conversation with Dane Piekarski. Dane graduated from Dublin City Schools in 2022. He's now a third-year student at the University of Central Florida, where he's majoring in film and minoring in entrepreneurship. Dane, thank you so much for joining me this morning. I know we haven't seen each other in person for several years now, but it's hard for me to believe you graduated back in 2022 from Kaufman. So you're not a working professional quite yet, but you're doing some really cool professional experiences in what you're studying in college. And I can't wait for you to share more about that. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited for this.
So I know you're calling in from Florida, and surprisingly not as warm as I think I would have thought it was going to be. You said you were walking home from class last night and it was in the 30s, which is pretty hard to believe, but still much warmer than what we've had here in the last couple of days, as we haven't even been in school. It's been so cold.
That's insane. Yeah. Well, I'll take the 35, I guess.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, luckily your roots in Ohio prepared you for it.
That's true.
Very cool. So I know you're at the University of Central Florida, correct?
That is correct.
Yes, in your third year, and I know kind of what you went in planning to study versus what you are focusing in now has changed quite a bit. So let's just start with where you are now, and you're a film student at University of Central Florida, and I'd love to hear about what are the things happening in a third year film student's life in a program like that.
Yeah, so now that I'm in my third year, I'm kind of in a point where I'm taking all of like the upper level classes, no more random astronomy classes anymore, which is nice. As much as I love learning about cool different things, I have found that I really love film, which is why I switched to it. It's to a point where like I enjoy reading the textbook. It's not like a task that you have to do, it's a task that I want to do, which is a really cool and unique experience for me because I cannot recall ever really enjoying reading a science textbook just for fun. But I think that it's an interesting spot to be in because right now I'm applying for the BFA, which is the Bachelor of Fine Arts here at UCF, which will hopefully allow me to get into the higher level programs. Like the BA is just like for general students. BFA, you have to do a capstone project, which is where you'll end your career at UCF with a film. You'll create a film. Like that's like your final year. So I'm really hoping I get into that. That's kind of where I'm striving to end up and trying to make all the right connections, meet all the right people to give myself the best odds and building that portfolio up to really make myself stand out amongst the crowd.
No, that makes sense. And I think it's worth mentioning that you started out as a pre-med student, so you referencing those science classes and maybe seeing the value and probably finding some things that were interesting, but also not always really enjoying all the reading that comes along with a major like that. So for you to then find something that obviously has really captured you in a way that you were looking for, and now you feel very confident in the decision you've made to make the switch, I think it's just good for our students to hear. That's very typical at the college level to go in with one idea and one major and to switch. And some people do it multiple times. And I think the big thing to recognize is that can potentially cause you to stay in college longer. So, going in high school and really trying to learn as much as you can about yourself and your interests can help avoid that. But ultimately, you have to follow what feels right at the time. And if that's the case, it's still the right decision if obviously it's taking you where you're trying to go.
Yeah, I think it's because like in high school, I took as many science and math classes as I possibly could to put myself in the best possible position for when I got into college, which at the time was a very good decision, and it did help me a lot for all of those science courses I was taking in my first year. And I did still really enjoy the classes that I were taking, but they were just not, like there was something missing, and that's when I knew like I just needed to just try it. I said, why not follow my dreams and see where it takes me? Worst case scenario, I fall back on something else or whatever. But I was like, if I don't ever throw it myself out there and just try and do it, I think I would regret never trying it for the rest of my life than regret trying it and failing. And also, I think it's really interesting how many people I've met just in the film world who have changed majors. I've met multiple people who were on pre-med to be doctors. I met a lawyer yesterday, a guy who wanted to be a lawyer yesterday who's now in film. And so it's just like stuff like that are always changing. And people even change like multiple years in. I met a student the other day who had been down, I think it was a business management path for like 2.5 years, and then he switched and he's like, yeah, I just like want to try it because it's my passion. And I was like, yeah, I'm all for trying your passions.
No, it's great, man. I think, again, it's not surprising that you've met people who kind of took that similar path as you in terms of coming in thinking you're going to go one direction, especially one that I think seems a little more laid out, one that people, when you tell them, hey, I'm pre-med, or I'm going to become a lawyer, I'm going to do business management, they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense because it's safe and there's open opportunities in those fields. Versus film, people are like, ooh, I don't know, it takes a little more, it's a little more risky. But I think if you go into it and you just recognize, but this is what I love, this is what I'm spending all my time learning about, these are the things I want to do, not just in a classroom, but outside of a classroom. Because I do think if you're going to go a direction like film, you can't just sign up for the classes and do what everybody else is doing to learn about it. Because if you go that route and then you graduate, even with a capstone project, that's not really going to be what helps you land those future opportunities. I think you have to really embrace, hey, this is something that I have to go out and create my own opportunities for. I have to build my own network, and I have to start doing things now and failing early so that by the time I'm older and trying to make it in this industry, I've gotten a lot of that learning out of the way. So I'd love for you to share, in addition to obviously the courses you're taking and the professors that you're meeting, what are you doing outside of traditional college work to gain experience and to network in the industry?
Yeah, there's a lot with all of that stuff, especially in the film industry, in ways that, might not even think about at like a younger age. Stuff I was definitely not thinking about until like even last year as a sophomore in college, because just it's not the way that you're raised necessarily for a lot of people to network and be using LinkedIn and creating all your different things outside of class and just failing hard and fast, which I think is really interesting experience. So like outside of class, like I am always trying to write or come up with story ideas to kind of get the ball rolling, stretch my creativity. A thing that we did in class that I love using is just sitting down and writing 20 ideas out. It doesn't matter how bad the ideas are or how good they are, but just force yourself, like once a week to be creative and just try and come up with something new and sit there until you come up with 20 ideas. And if you, by the end of it, have 20 really bad ideas, it's like, okay, you now know 20 ways to not go, right? Which I think is, like an interesting way of looking at it, instead of like, oh, that's 20 failures. That's 20 ways that 20 different stories that you shouldn't pursue, but you now have ideas on where you can go next. And like, outside of class, the networking is huge. And even in class, like meeting the kids in class that, you really connect with, building your team. Probably, at least in the film industry, there's a lot of examples of people who like just meet in college and they continue their paths together. And then there's the people that you meet outside of college in the real world and stuff like that. Like, that I've met multiple people through LinkedIn or through just connections, through family, friends, or whatever it may be. And I just, I just reached out to them. I just said, hey, I'm in the film department at UCF, and I just want to talk to you. Like, I just want 30 minutes just to hear about everything that you've done, and I want to be a sponge and absorb everything. And I've learned the power of the .edu. That is, I think, something that's so underrated. It's such an important tool when you reach out to people, because when you see a gmail.com or something like that, that can be implied that it's someone who's not in college. But the edu, people love to help people in college because most people recognize that they were in that spot at one point, and if they can help someone out in the same way that they wanted help, it's really, really cool. So I think that is something that's really underrated that people can use to their advantage.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I think even to go a step back further, right, I think people feel the same way about helping students in high school, because you're right, a lot of high school students don't have that on their radar yet. They're not thinking about networking. They're not thinking about those informational interviews that you've set up for yourself just because you saw somebody doing something that was interesting to you and you took the time to reach out and explain who you are and what you'd love to learn from them. And it's flattering, and it's something where people want to help those who are aspiring to reach the levels that they've reached, and they know how difficult it can be. So to your point, people love helping younger students, and whether you're in college or whether you're in high school, it's the worst that can happen is you'll get no response. No one's going to give you a nasty response. They just won't respond if they can't do it. But even then, following up a couple weeks later sometimes is worth it, because they may have just been really busy and then say, oh, thank you so much for following up. It wasn't a great time, but now is a better time. So and that's some of the opportunities we're trying to create with this podcast. Is we have DCS alumni all over the world doing the coolest things imaginable. And we have students now that are dreaming and trying to figure out what they want to do, and they have interest, but they don't know where to start. And this gives them a person to hear from, and then not only to hear a recorded story, but then to know, hey, I could reach out to this person on LinkedIn, or I could reach out to them via email, and I'm probably going to hear back. And I think that's definitely something we're trying to make more common for our current high school students.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I think definitely reaching out to Dublin alumni. We've got such a fantastic alumni base, in my opinion. There's so many awesome people, and I think we've got a lot of awesome people in Dublin as well. And of course, if anyone's out there listening to this and wants to reach out to me, I would be more than willing to respond back, talk to you. If you got any projects, send them my way. I'd be more than willing to take a look at them and give feedback if you'd like.
That's really nice. And I think, again, not everybody has that ability at every point, right? You might be preparing for finals or something like that, and it's really busy, but you would at least say, hey, now's not the best time, but let's follow up in a few weeks, and we'll go from there. And again, you just get that ball rolling, and all of a sudden it can completely change what you decide to do later on. And I think that's such an easy way to learn about areas of interest, and to just start learning how to network, and it just pays off in major ways in the future. So I think it's great that you offer that, and I hope some people take you up on it.
Me too.
So speaking of projects and things like that, what are some things that you're doing right now? You mentioned just some of the different things that your professor suggests that you do to try to get those creative juices flowing. Are there actual projects that you're working on, whether it's school related or just something you're doing personally to develop in an area that you want to develop in, that you're working on, that you think would be helpful for students to hear about?
Yeah, so there's always something I'm working on. Actually, this year, my goal for the year is to make it the best year of my life, which sounds like a very lofty goal. And it is. I like to set my goals high. And so I have the plan to develop this short series called The Knowing, which is highly inspired from things like Black Mirror or The Twilight Zone, for people who are aware or knowledgeable about those shows and stuff like that, just to kind of get people thinking is kind of my goal. And so I'm developing a couple of episodes that I would put on YouTube, and just kind of creating that and just going out there, even if it's just a 1 or 2 person team, and then an actor or something, just anything. Doesn't matter if it's bad, but just practicing the art of filmmaking and learning and being creative is my goal for this first half of the year, is really start to develop that and kind of see where that takes me and what I learn from that, and maybe potentially, if it goes well, continue to develop. And then I'm also working towards getting some good internships. Fallback Studios is a studio being built in Dublin, Ohio, which is crazy. It is the biggest Hollywood-style studio in 400-mile radius, which, for reference, for people who don't know just how big that is, it's 800 miles from where I am in Florida to Columbus, Ohio. So that is halfway to here. That is a huge radius. And so I'm trying to connect with the people there, and potentially get an internship this summer where I can learn from potential greats. And that would be an amazing opportunity. So that, or potentially reaching out to Disney as well as some other options. So that's kind of my goals for outside of class. And then also just working on film sets, student films, stuff like that. People always need hands on deck, and it's kind of in college, it's more of a I scratch your back, you scratch my back kind of thing, where it's I'll help you out, and you might not be getting much for it, but you know that I'll help you out one day in the future, and just that connection that you get is also really important. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm working on.
So I know you had a really cool opportunity over winter break as well, right? You had a chance to be on set on a film that you were connected with through one of your professors. What was that like?
It was probably one of the most unique and awesome experiences I've had so far, especially in the film realm of things. I got this really awesome opportunity by just connecting with my teacher and him seeing my excitement for film. And he has this friend named BK who works in the industry as a director and wrote and is directing a personal project of his. And they had to do reshoots. The original production was shot in the United Kingdom, and so they were going to reshoot in Ohio, but that got moved to Indianapolis, and they just invited me along. So I was on the shoot for about 3 weeks, 2 weeks of pre-production, just creating all the different documents that you would need for that, and then a week of actual production on set. And it was a really awesome opportunity. I ended up being the key PA, which is production assistant. And so I was in charge of the other PAs and also kind of their go-to person if they needed anything. And it was a really awesome experience because I got to do everything. I was slating, which is the take one, that thing. And then I was helping out with the camera department, helping with the cinematography, helping with all of the electronic gear, which is the grip and electric in the film terms. I was wrangling cable and helping the art department paint and do all these awesome things to help create this awesome shot. We were shooting the final scene of this movie, and it was really awesome. It was an epic experience, especially because the guy that I met, BK, is such a genuine and awesome person. He is a director who took me under his wing and kind of was treating me as someone that he was mentoring personally, which was really awesome and not typical necessarily in the film industry. And that experience was something that I value so much because he taught me just how to not only run a team and a real film production, multi-million-dollar budget film, but also was so willing to help me learn the artist side of things. Let's take a look at the camera and what lenses are we going to use here, and how is this shot going to affect the way the audience feels, and what lighting do we want to do to create the most eerie feeling, because it was it's a horror film. And so all of those things and all of the people who are just so willing, if you just go up and say, hey, do you have a moment to explain, what kind of you're doing here? And if you recognize a moment where they have a time to do that, they are excited to tell you. And so using that opportunity to the best of my ability was so awesome. I was exploiting every avenue, every person, getting to know them. And I think that is such an awesome opportunity. If anyone ever gets that, it's recognizing that you are in a potential to learn so much, and instead of kind of just sitting back and watching, really just throwing yourself in the deep end, and you're going to mess up, but if you mess up, that's a learning experience, and then you can grow and get even better. And I think that experience was kind of what it was for me, and now I've come out on the other side, and I've learned so much, and I'm so excited to use those in my future career.
I love that example, and I think anytime you can do something that's entry level, where you're some type of assistant in a field that you're interested in, and you're not just there to spectate, you're there to actually add value. You are there to be curious, and all of a sudden now you know about roles in film and in that industry that you didn't even know were a thing until you actually got to stand there on set and be a part of it. And that's really what it's all about, right? You obviously hit the jackpot in terms of the director and the way he taught you and took you under his wing. That might not have happened. There are directors out there that wouldn't have done that, but then you might have found a mentor in somebody completely, in a different role that you didn't even realize you were going to be interested in. And I think that's just the opportunity of taking advantage of something like that. When that door opens, you have to take it, and you have to do what you can to change other plans if you know that this one really creates opportunities to learn that you can't get in most other places. So I love that you gained that experience, and I'm not surprised that your professor saw that you were somebody that would show up and actually represent the college well, but more than anything, be somebody who was there for the right reasons and benefit from the situation in ways that others might not have. So I think it's incredible that you had that experience.
Yeah, it was awesome. I'm extremely grateful. It was a fun time.
No, those are great. And I love that you referenced Fallback Studios. They've actually been in to visit with our students already, and some of the people that I work with in the Pathways department here in Dublin City Schools have also been working with them as we're trying to create partnerships where students from various programs like our Entrepreneurship Academy or different business programs and some of our art and theater students, we're trying to find ways for them to connect with the individuals at that studio. Because to your point, to have that in Dublin, Ohio doesn't even make sense. I think people can't even register how cool of an opportunity this is. Right. We're starting to recognize it, but the fact that they're scheduled to be open this year in 2025. It's unbelievable. And for Dublin to be on the map in that way, and for our students to, because it's not even us reaching out to them to create these opportunities. They want more students to understand the industry and to understand the opportunities and to start seeing if that's a direction they want to go, and to create more mentorship opportunities for kids, not just who want to be actors, obviously, but who want to be directors, who want to do the set design, who want to do different things that you don't even know are jobs in an industry that's obviously very, very cool. So I think it's amazing that obviously you being from this area, and even though you've gone so far away for college, you may be coming back here, and I'm sure your parents would love that, to get to have the summer with you, and then for you to be able to have access to that level of internship in your hometown is so cool. So yeah, I love that you referenced that, and I am so excited to see how that partnership evolves for our school district.
Yeah, sounds like I graduated too early, man. That is an awesome opportunity for everybody in Dublin, because that is like beyond exciting. I'm grateful for all those students who will potentially get an opportunity with them.
No, that's great. No, and I think we certainly want more of our students to have those types of experiences before they graduate, because as much as it is okay to change your major, and we encourage you to be open to redirecting when it feels right, we also know it's very expensive to do a lot of post-secondary education options, especially at the college level. So the more you know about yourself, and the more you've explored your values and your interests and the things that you're really good at, and you can see how those things all work together to create future career opportunities, hopefully when you do leave high school, if you go to college, you're selecting a major that makes more sense. If you decide to do something else, maybe you see, hey, I can do this type of work for a year before I go to college, or before I do something else related to the industry that I want to go into, because I can make more money, I can get more experience, and then I'll be a better candidate for a program that I know I'm interested in, but it's super competitive right now when I don't have the experience. So we're trying to get people just to think more critically and to spend more time experiencing things to help them with that future pathway decision making, because it is overwhelming.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely get the overwhelming aspect of choosing a pathway. I mean, there's so much I was considering when I went to college, and obviously ended up choosing the science and pre-med path. And I think about the fact that like I worked so hard to make sure that I could graduate early and everything like that. I could have graduated in like 3 years. If I really wanted to push myself, I could have done it in 2.5 years, with all the credits that I had accumulated in high school. And when I got there and I decided to change, there was that feeling of like, oh, like I can't do that anymore. I can try and I can get close, but it won't be the same. And then it was like an accepting of that's okay. Like
Hmm.
that is not the end all be all. At the end of the day, when you graduate, it's not about who gets to the finish line first necessarily, right? It's about like what you learn and your experiences that you gain while you're here that really helps set you apart and helps you grow and become the best candidate and best person when you leave.
No, I think that's a great message. And I also love that you referenced that you accumulated all of those credits before you even went to college. And I know students now have the opportunity to take AP courses or IB courses at their high schools. We also have a lot of opportunities through College Credit Plus or dual enrollment. Most of our students who are doing that go through Columbus State or Ohio State, but certainly other colleges make those opportunities available as well. But to your point, you had kind of a plan that you knew, hey, I can graduate early with these credits, but you still were at such an advantage by accumulating those credits to make a change and then not have to go to college for 5 years or 6 years like a lot of people do, because it's so expensive. Every year you extend it. So even though you changed your path, you still are able to finish in that 4 year time frame, hopefully, and that still is really nice in terms of not setting you back too far financially, hopefully.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think it's great. Well, obviously, you're doing a lot of great things right now to just gain experience, to try to learn the skills that you know you're going to need, to start the networking that you're going to do. You've given some great tips on how students can start doing that early and what's helped you so far. So kind of as we're wrapping things up, is there anything that you feel like would have been really helpful to know, or things that would have been nice if someone had shared with you prior to graduating and going on and making the decisions you have to make beyond high school that you think you could share right now?
Yeah. I think that, you know, Well, one, I wish I would have known I was going into film because then I would have maybe put a little more effort into that in high school. But I think something that I learned when I was here was it was like an analogy for your life being a highway, which I know is funny because that's like a song as well. But it is a good analogy where like you are on this highway and life moves fast, so you're driving down, and sometimes you're in the fast lane, sometimes you're not, and maybe you see an exit, and that exit looks like there's a lot of interesting things off that exit. And you could go that way. You don't have to. And you could continue down your path, and you can see all of the opportunities that are in front of you. And if you choose to go down that path, you are now down a new highway. And that opens up yourself to so many new possibilities that you would have never done. You don't have to. You can. But it's just the idea that, every single time you are given an opportunity, that is an exit from your current highway. And just the idea that, it can be a scary transition to do something like that, but you'll never know, where that highway will lead you, and what experience that'll give you. In worst case scenario, maybe you got off on the wrong highway and you can loop back around to your original one. I think like that kind of analogy for me has helped me like kind of guide the way I view my experience in college and where I want to go, where yes, I can take these certain paths and go this way, but to not be afraid to go out and take a different path and see where that leads me. Because I think in high school, I was pretty, like I want to be on this one path that's very clear and easy to follow and has a good result when I'm done, to something where I was like, yeah, this is a scary different pathway that I'm not used to, but that is okay, and sometimes that helps you the most. I think it has helped me tenfold, just the ability to be like, yeah, let's just try it. If you fail, or I don't even like failure, but if you don't find the success that you're looking for, recognizing that that is not the end and that there's so much more, because you never know what's just around the corner.
No, I think it's great. And it's like I paid you to say that. Every time I do a presentation now on our Pathways program, I put two pictures up side by side. One is a narrow, like country road that I think a lot of times when people think of the term pathway, you picture that. And then I put it next to a really expansive highway system with exits and on-ramps and off-ramps. And everything you just described is what I'm trying to get more students to embody as a high school student, especially. And to your point, you can continue to embody that going beyond high school. But I think the more you allow yourself to explore and follow curiosities and to network and meet people who are doing things that are of interest to you, the easier it is to end up in really cool situations in the future and on those highways that you want to be on and that are following the things that you're trying to pursue to make a difference in the world that makes sense for you. So I think it's great that you share that message, and I love that you use that example. It just kind of makes me feel better about the messaging I'm putting out there as well. I am so grateful to spend this time with you. I know we had an opportunity to get to know each other back when you were in high school, and it's neat for me to see you now as someone who's getting ready to take that leap into the adult world, but you're not quite there yet, which I think is great because you have a lot to learn and a lot to explore and so much more networking to do. So I know that the next year is going to fly by, but you're going to use it well, and I'm excited for this to be the best year of your life. Hopefully it started well with getting to attend that OSU game on Monday and watch them win a national championship in person. So hopefully you get to build on that. It's awesome, man. Well, thank you for your time. I hope to catch up maybe when you're back here doing an internship with Fallback Studios in person.
I hope so, yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. Please do not hesitate to reach out with any questions about the many resources we have in Dublin City Schools related to exploring post-secondary options. My email address is patton_kevin@dublinschools.net. I also want to give special thanks to student intern Cam Williams from the DCS Media Marketing Academy. Cam designed the cover art for the show and will be sharing regular updates via social media. Be sure to follow Cam's posts at DCS Pathways Pod on Instagram and TikTok. Hope to see you next week.